And we're live. All right. Welcome to Speak with Estate Planner, the YouTube channel where we educate people about everything estate planning while interviewing everyone's favorite estate planning attorneys. I'm Heath Ross, your host, and today I'm speaking with John Koenig, an estate planning attorney in Wisconsin and also Florida. John, thanks for being with us today.
It's great to be here, Ross.
So a lot of couples, families, they have questions about estate planning, and it's not always easy to find answers out there. So today we hope to just answer a few of those more basic questions and hope to get to know you a little bit more.
Sounds great. I'm excited to talk about this.
Nice. So I wonder if you could just start by sharing with the group what kind of attorney you are and what makes your practice unique.
Well, I could use my normal answer when somebody says, what kind of attorney you are? I answer is, I'm a good attorney.
Nice.
But specifically, I do estate planning and elder law, and that's all I do. I don't do divorce work, traffic work, criminal work. You know, we are not a general practice office. All we do is estate planning and elder law, and that's all I want to do, because that's really the area of law that I have focused for the last 20 plus years. And the area of law where I believe we're able to help people greatly answer their questions about their estate plan. How do they make certain that the right people get the right stuff at the right time?
Wonderful, wonderful. So a lot of people don't know kind of the basic underlying of what is estate planning and why it's important. Some people don't even know that a will and a trust are part of an estate plan. So I'm wondering if you could give us kind of a very basic definition, and you can expand upon it, after, but what's kind of like a one sentence definition of what is estate planning?
I'm actually going to give you a 3-sentence definition.
Okay, perfect.
Number 1, stay in control of my stuff.
Nice.
Number 2, be certain that my stuff gets to the right people, okay, the people I want. And number 3, when, where, how, and why all that happens. Beautiful. That's our definition of estate planning.
I love it. That's a great answer. I love how you break it down too. It's something that, it sounds like it's so simple, but it's so complex, and there's so many different, aspects of estate planning that, you can go in, but just having that basic underlying understanding of what it is so important, just getting started with somebody and helping them with their estate plan.
Exactly.
So, thank you. So my next question is, how do you like to work with people? I know you mentioned before, that you do some in-person educational seminars. How does that work?
Yeah. So in our office, the whole process of estate planning starts with education. And what we've discovered over the years is when we have a client that's educated, understands some of the basic concepts of estate planning, then when they sit down and meet with the attorney, we don't have to worry about covering that education. We can jump right into exactly what their concerns are, what their worries are. So we do workshops regularly. I was just telling Heath earlier, we're sort of in the middle of workshops right now. We do several times a year, we do a great big retail workshop. I talked with about 30, 35 people this morning. I've got a 6 o'clock program with about 40 people in it. We got another one tomorrow morning. But besides those, every 2 weeks in each of our offices, both offices in Wisconsin, as well as our office in Florida, we have a standing workshop that we do right into our office. So when somebody calls and says, hey, how much does a will cost? Or my mom's going to a nursing home, what are my options? No matter what the question is, we direct them to that workshop. And we spend an hour and a half to 2 hours at the most educating those clients. And the way we do it is unique. I'm not standing up there reading law to you. I'm in front of the workshop, in front of you, telling you stories and helping you understand how life happens by telling you stories that have happened on our office, on our side of the desk, as we like to say, or our side of the table, that may not happen on your side. But our philosophy is have the planning in place so that it's there if you need it, when you need it, because it's better to have it and not need it than not have it and need it.
Yeah, man, John, the way you talk about estate planning, like it gets me pumped up. I mean, a concept, that some people might seem as, not something that's very exciting, but you obviously have a great passion for it. You seem really approachable, and you actually make this sound like, it's something that's exciting, that we can learn from.
It is. This is exciting. A lot of people are scared to come to see an attorney. And that's another reason why we do a workshop. You got a group of 10, 15 people in a room. It's a little bit easier to approach the attorney and listen to the attorney and understand what's going on, because you're not the only one there. But it's so important that those clients come in with that understanding, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. In our office, we've started calling it the Dr. Google law degree. I read it online, so it must be true.
Right.
So we spend time talking about those misconceptions and those really sometimes flat out lies when it comes to the estate planning as well as the asset protection plan.
Nice. Wonderful. So you kind of already answered my next question, but maybe we could just clarify it a little bit. When somebody, calls into your office and they need help with estate planning, it sounds like, you direct them directly to that, the next time you're hosting that in-person event. So I guess, how does that initial phone call when they reach out look?
Yeah. So one of our client services coordinators are going to answer the phone, and they're trained to be able to ask you the right questions to understand what's going on. And really, they're looking for two things. Number one, is this a crisis? Is there something going on right now where I've got to get into the attorney today or tomorrow, or it's going to be a bigger mess, right? So in our calendaring, we always have slots for crisis appointments. If it's not a real true crisis, meaning, we just got notice that Medicare is not going to pay for mom's nursing home costs anymore because the rehab is done, and now we got to start paying $12,000 a month. What can we do? Somebody is about to die and they've got questions about things. Those are crisis situations, but those are really very few. So those that aren't in a crisis situation, we direct them to our workshop. And I'm like most attorneys, and all the attorneys in our office are this way. You're not going to get in to see us for 2 or 3 weeks anyway. So you may as well come to the workshop during that time, because we have them every 2 weeks. Come to the workshop. Let's go ahead and get you an appointment set up on our calendar. And if you come to our workshop, we give you a free consultation. So we're not charging you for that initial consultation. Because you spent a couple of hours of your time with us learning, we're going to give you a couple of hours of our time taking that learning to the next level, which is, how do I apply it to my situation?
Nice. Awesome. So I think that's great how you delineate between, what might be considered an emergency situation versus, hey, we just need to make sure that we're educated and we're on the same page, and you're able to, navigate that appropriately for people. So
correct.
That's very kind of you. Cool. So moving on to this next question. What is the most common question that you receive about estate planning?
Oh boy, tons of them. But the one that I hear all the time, which is so wrong, it's bad law. Should I give my house to my kids now so it's protected later?
Yeah,
I hear that all the time. That's probably one of the number one questions we get. Should I give my house to my kids? And the problem with that, well, there's all kinds of problems with that. But first of all, if you give the house to the kids, it's no longer your house.
Right.
It's your kids' house. They own it. Meaning if something happens in their life, a divorce, a bankruptcy, or they just get mad at you and decide to kick you out of the house, which I've seen that happen too, that can happen.
Right.
So in our office, the number one rule for our clients is keep you in control, keep our clients in control. And when you give away your stuff, your assets, your house, you don't have control of it anymore. And you very well could end up living in your son's basement that had to file bankruptcy and lost your house through his bankruptcy. And there's worse things. There's tax issues dealing with it. Yes, it avoids probate. Yes, if you've done it, long enough in the past, more than 5 years ago, it's protected if you go to a nursing home. But those are the bottom of the row. I mean, there's so many other things that could happen, and we hear that all the time. Why don't I just give my house or my stuff to my kids now, because they're going to keep it for me and they're going to protect me later and they're going to take care of me. I'm like, okay, sure, if that's what you want to do, but come to my side of the table, step into my world. Here's what happens all the time. It's never going to happen to you, right? Never going to happen to you. But this is the real world. Things happen to people. And when you've given your house to the kids, you've just exposed it to all those problems that they have: divorce, bankruptcy, liability, lawsuit, just mishandling of monies, all kinds of things.
So it's great that people are thinking ahead, we know this is all going to happen eventually. how do we want to have it handled? How do we get ahead of it so that, things are already handled and in place? But, people think that they know that, the best route that they should go, but that's actually where you come in. That's why people should come and they should talk to you and receive your advice about, how should I handle this now so that
Right.
everything's taken care of in the future. And, sometimes handling it sooner is actually creating the plan and actually trying to execute the plan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I like to say that we have two types of clients that come into our office. We have clients that come in vertical. We have clients that come in horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So clients coming in vertical, that's a pre-plan. There's not any major thing going on. So we can put together that plan and put together not just what's going to happen tomorrow, but what's going to happen next year and 2 years and 10 years and 20 years down the road, and build that plan. And then you've got those horizontal people. All right. That's a crisis. Something's already going on. We can still do planning in crisis. Mm-hmm. But it's not going to be near as good of a plan as a pre-plan. And I guarantee it's going to cost you a whole lot more to put that crisis plan in place. Because when a crisis plan comes in, that's not something I can schedule out for 2 weeks and fit it into my calendar. It's got to be taken care of tomorrow. Right. So I got to put other things aside. And when I have to do that, when an attorney has to do that, unfortunately, it's going to cost you a little bit more, but it's a lot of times better than the alternative, having no plan and potentially losing everything.
Right. So I like what you say about, being able to plan what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Most people have never really thought about, how is this going to change, and how could I, maybe even benefit, myself and my heirs by being able to, have a plan that is, distributing things out, over the course of several years. And to, everyone in your family, maybe you have more people that you want to, distribute it to. And that's what they can figure out when they come talk to you.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. We educate them in the workshop, mm-hmm. so they have a base of knowledge. And then when they come into the office and meet with one of our attorneys, then we take that knowledge and apply it to their situation. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting when most people think about estate planning, they think about the money. They think about the stuff, the things they own. Mm-hmm. That's really not what's most important. What's most important is family. What's most important is yourself and your spouse and your kids and their kids, the grandkids. And that's where we start talking, and we call it our vision meeting. They come in, meet with us. We start talking about their family. Tell me about yourselves. What do you do for a living? What are your worries? What are you concerned? What keeps you up at night? Tell me about your kids. Do you worry about them? Is there stuff going on? And then as we're learning all of this specific things about their families, then we can take that planning and then start applying the stuff to it. Right? If you got a child that has an addiction, probably not a best thing to leave them $100,000 cash when you die. Right. So how do we do that? Do we do that inside of a trust? Do we do that inside of a will? Do we give it to somebody else and trust them to give it to the child when they need it? Mm-hmm. A bunch of different ways. But we're able to do that because we start with the family. We start with, it's because in our office, it's all about family. Right. And we want that to be understood because that's really the big picture, the big reason why we do it. Yes, you want to do it to protect and preserve your assets. You want to do it to avoid probate, make things simple. But the bottom line is we're doing this planning for our families. And that's always where we start that conversation when you get that one-on-one meeting. That's not a conversation you have in a room full of people. Right. It's a one-on-one conversation. It's the general law, the general rules, the general planning options that we talk about in the workshops. Then one-on-one, what's going on with your family? What's the worries? What's the concern? And let's build this plan where we can start meeting these issues and these concerns. So when something does happen, you're covered. And we like to say, so you're all set in our office.
Beautiful. So just to recap, kind of the process is most people reach out probably through phone. And then they attend an educational seminar, and then you guys set up that strategic meeting, which you call the vision meeting. The vision meeting, right? Perfect. And then you guys take it from there. So that seems pretty simple. That doesn't seem very intimidating. Most people think lawyers are so intimidating. Like this seems like a nice, easy process. It is. And one of the other things that we do at that vision meeting is one of the other big worries people have about attorneys is what's it going to cost me? Because by tradition, the way it's always worked, attorneys charged by the hour, so you hire an attorney at $300 an hour and he says, oh, I think it'll take me 10 hours to do this plan.
and you get the bill and it's been 20 hours, because there's nothing that restricts that. So at the end of that vision meeting, typically we're able to give 3 options to the client. Here's what we talked about. Here's what your concerns are. Here's 3 different options to meet those concerns. And then that's priced differently. All right. The simple options are going to be less expensive. The more complex are going to be more expensive, but we let them know upfront before they hire the attorney, here's what the costs are going to be. And those are all flat fee costs. So we know exactly, so the client knows exactly what they're going to end up paying the attorney. And there's no secret to, extra 20 hours padded in on the back end, because we already know exactly what we need to do with those plans.
Right. And I'm sure that gives people a lot of confidence in being able to work with you when they know exactly what it's going to cost. So that's awesome. All right. So my last question that I have here today, and I'm going to ask you to kind of step out of that attorney role for just one second. So there's a lot of, families or couples that are just getting started with estate planning. Think back to when you wrote, when you had to do an estate plan for yourself. What would you share with a family or couple that's just getting started with their estate planning?
Yeah. So people that are just starting out really need 3 sets of documents to take care of everything. Number one, you need a will. You need some type of document that says who gets what when I die. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to go through probate. We can use jointly owned assets or beneficiary designated assets to avoid the probate side of it. So that's what I call the death document, right? What happens if you die, who gets what? But then you need some living documents in place. And those are our powers of attorney, financial power of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney, sometimes called advance directives, naming other people to make decisions for you for finance and healthcare when you can no longer make them yourself. So whether that's your spouse, whether that's a brother or a sister or parents. If you're just starting out, you probably don't have kids old enough to be in that position. But another point, if you do have minor children, what's going to happen to them if you and your wife pass away or you and your husband pass away? So inside of that will, you need those guardianship provisions of who's going to take care of the kids.
Right.
And be certain that issues are being covered as well. So those 3 sets of documents are really where we start out. And when I did my own plan, that's where I started out. When my kids were younger, we had wills with guardianship provisions in them. We've got the basic powers of attorney. And really, powers of attorney you need all along. When you turn 18, you really ought to have powers of attorney for healthcare and finance. One real quick story about that I learned the hard way. Okay, and I'm the estate planning attorney. My daughter, 18 years old, freshman year in college, playing soccer. She blows her knee out, just like good old dad did, tore her ACL. We took her to the ER and took her to the hospital to get things checked out. And as soon as they found out she was 18, where was old dad sitting? Out in the waiting room. All right. Now, she did say, can't dad come back? And I did get to come back with them. But every time they asked a question, they weren't asking dad. They were asking my daughter because she was 18. So guess what we did? The next day, we put healthcare and financial powers of attorney where mom and dad can help make these decisions if it is ever at the point that she couldn't make them herself. So those are just so important documents to have in place, those powers of attorney for healthcare and finances.
Wonderful. Yeah, now people know just the basic things that they need to know. So that's wonderful. Great. All right. So that's all that I really had that we had today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. I think it was really educational. It was for me. I'm sure it will for everybody who watches our video.
Yeah, appreciate this, Heath, and thanks for the time for doing the interview.
Rock and roll. So again, this is John Koenig, an estate planning attorney in Wisconsin and Florida, and I am Heath Frost with Speak with Estate Planner, and we will see you next time.